Come back to it, like the whole action thing. Crack.
Well, actually, if you slice it together. 3 things that we're going to talk about.
Trace.
One is it is March Madness. So we're going to talk about March Madness.
Yes.
We're going to talk about top 5 Marvel villains. And the third thing is, and this one scares me to death, it's the dreaded sex talk conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Which
it's good.
I might or might not have to be doing with my kids soon.
That's right.
All right, so let's get
March
into this.
And it's
It is
madness.
March, and there is craziness everywhere, especially now that they're doing they're like all meeting in the bubble and
yes,
stuff. You
they're
know,
in Indianapolis.
doing the bubble format.
March
which is cool.
Madness is amazing, and if you don't know about it, you need to know. Even my wife, who had nothing to do with this, is now a March Madness fan. It's
we're doing this
cool.
huge thing like right now at our church. We've got a Facebook group going called LW Madness.
That's
and,
right. Join in,
you
tournament,
can join it.
get in.
Yeah, so theoretically this podcast comes out on Thursday.
And the deadline
so
is
the
Friday
deadline
noon.
is Friday. So if you're watching this right now,
Yes.
go to LW Madness on Facebook or
Right.
find us
Right.
on the group or whatever.
Fill out the bracket. Top 10 people, there's prizes. The people who generally win are not the people who
actually
go
care about
after
it.
it, research it,
and think about it.
Yep.
Anything else going on with you, man?
I'm actually planting some trees.
Oh, you're being very green.
I am. I love planting trees.
That is really good.
Bill, do you know? My grandpa told me this, and I've heard it a bunch of times. Do you know the best time to plant a tree? No, you don't.
The spring?
Because it's 20 years ago or right now. So I planted a couple trees. I got some more holes to dig. I'm just using the shovel.
Oh, so
auger, shovel.
So
Holes
just
about
really
this
like
big.
old school, you know.
Yes.
You know what? If you were to ask me what an auger is,
Yeah.
if it wasn't in the context of this conversation that we just had, I would have no idea what that is.
Big, like noodle. What
real
about
good.
you? All right.
I'm doing the CrossFit Open, so
Ooh,
it's really like
fitness guy.
it's like the big thing right
I
now.
know. I was in CrossFit once. They go crazy for that.
Yeah.
It's like the Open. I didn't know what they were talking about. The whole first year I was in this, I had no idea what the CrossFit Open
It leads
was.
up to like it's like this one event that the CrossFitters like look forward
good.
to. But last week we talked about our top 5 heroes.
Mhm,
You
yeah.
had pretty much the
You liked
Avengers
Captain
Assemble.
America, I think.
No,
You
I
were
did
Captain
not
America.
like Captain America. You liked Captain America. This week we're gonna talk about our top 5 villains.
yeah.
So we're gonna go with number 5, our least favorite villain, or I don't know if
Of
they're
the bunch.
I didn't even know how
no,
I
I mean,
rated
it's like
this.
top 5, like, not. You're not talking about the one I love.
It's like who you think is awesome.
Yeah.
Because so
ahead.
I went with Thanos as number 5.
Okay, well, you
I mean,
can't do
obviously
that.
he's
You can't do
super
that.
powerful.
Yeah.
But I same case as last week. Wanda was about to destroy him, and she could have. So
Yeah.
that's why he's 5.
I think I'm still one of yours, but I like Hela, the
Hela?
sister
Yeah.
of Thor, right, and Loki. She has the stuff grow out of her head.
Well, that's my
Amazing.
number 4.
Okay.
So I mean,
Goes right
it's
there.
not really that far off.
Okay.
4 for you.
I'm gonna go. Well, he was a bad guy, turned a good guy. Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah,
I really like Winter Soldier.
My number 3, I'm gonna have to go with someone who I just think is pure evil, because they don't have a soul, and that's Ultron. He was a villain that's just like, I mean, he didn't care. Like he did not care about humanity or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas at least like if you look at like Thanos or something like that, he wanted to basically, he had an idea in his head where I'm gonna like help humanity and life in general by getting rid of half of them.
Let's see. I've got 3 left, right? I'm gonna go off the wall here with, and I don't know a name, so you can help me out.
Okay.
Black Panther's half brother, who took the kingdom over. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's one of mine.
No way. I didn't even know his name.
That's my next one.
No
Killmonger.
way. His name's Killmonger?
Yeah.
I didn't even know his name. He's
Killmonger,
Black Panther's
yeah.
half brother.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was stealing that
Well,
one.
no,
I
that's
like it.
fine. Like, I'm glad you're stealing it. It means that we're in the same.
That was intense. That movie was intense.
Yeah.
He was a good bad guy.
Last 2.
Okay, so number 2 is going to be Thanos. And just all
okay.
that he
Put him
did.
up there. Yeah.
Right. You got to do that. Go
We're down
number
to our
1.
number 1, so I feel like there needs to be like a drum roll or something going on right now. This is the number 1. For me, it's Loki.
Loki's awesome.
He may not be like the strongest one or something like that, but he is just such a trickster. I
At
love
the
it.
end, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, when Thanos puts him down, I was like,
This
no.
sound like a dog or something.
He's
They had to
coming
put him
back.
down.
Yeah, it was. Okay. So I really thought about this.
Yes,
Like the
you did.
baddest.
You even hid your.
The baddest. I did. I hid
He
the
literally
answer. I wanna know
wrote
if
it
Phil knows-
down and, like,
I might
hid it
even
from
pronounce
me,
it
so-
wrong. I was like, who was the baddest bad,
baddest
entity?
of bad of all things. Okay.
I'm a Dormammu.
Dormammu?
Dormammu. You know who he is?
Yeah.
Dormammu? Dormammu is the bad guy in Doctor Strange, like the bad entity that's going to, like that. that thing, that entity is by far, it could crush Thanos.
Yeah.
When I said that name, we went into nerd level, and people are probably losing it right now. They're like, we
Yeah,
like
and,
only this.
and
only,
probably also correcting us because I'm saying the name wrong. I don't even know if it's cool or not, like
I'm not
if we're
sure.
talking about this stuff or not.
It's kind of nerdy. I hit the nerd level right there. So.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better before we go into this next conversation,
Yeah.
which I really do feel is going to be useful to a lot of people,
Sure.
because it's something that I feel like we don't necessarily talk about
Yeah.
in the church that much.
Right.
Actually, we just really don't talk about it at all.
We don't talk. Yeah, we don't.
And it is the dreaded sex talk.
Correct. And you're talking specifically with parents and kids.
Yes, with parents to
right?
kids.
We
and
tend to avoid talking about sex in general because we're talking to these big general audiences and we don't know what we can say and what we shouldn't and what we.
And so I think I'm dreading it just
Yeah.
because, and I haven't had this yet. So this
Yeah.
is me coming to the
Yeah.
wise sage.
You mean no one's told you about sex yet? Is that what you
Yeah,
meant?
that's exactly it, Mark. No.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and I think it gets, I'll just tell you right now, way too many parents wait way too long to begin this conversation. And you're with a 14-year-old who's heard everything at school, and you're trying to catch him up, and it's this awkward thing. It's got to start young.
Did you have someone who modeled this for you in your life?
Not well, no. My dad, I think I was in junior high at some point, and he's like, hey, I got to talk to you about something. And we actually went in his bedroom. It was me and him talking, and he started telling me some stuff, and I pretty much, there wasn't anything new there, and it was just like, I
Yeah.
can't wait to get out of here
Yeah,
kind of
it
thing.
was awkward.
So, and bless my dad's heart, I think that's how most dads did it.
Because the other day, my wife came up to me, and my son is in 4th grade.
Okay, yeah.
About to turn 10.
Yeah.
And she's like, have you had the sex talk with him? And I'm like, no.
So
Do I
he's
have
10.
to? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
You have two boys, 10 and 6,
And 6,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And I would say what we're talking about, with girls as well. This conversation needs to
Yes,
come
yeah.
out. In fact, I would tell you, as we talk about having the sex talk with your 10-year-old, you need to have this with your 6-year-old too.
Yeah.
That would be my advice to you is
Yeah.
get
And
started now.
You have a girl and a boy.
I have an 18-year-old
obviously.
and 12-year-old boy. Yeah.
So you've done this, you've walked this
I
path
have,
already.
yeah.
This is why I wanted to come to him
Yeah.
with some of these questions
right.
because for me, Hannah's expecting me to have this talk with our son. I don't know what to
Sure.
do. Like, I don't know. You talk about like, you can start this at any age, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
But,
So I would even say, Phil, people should start at 4, 5, and 6 years old. And
That
have a
seems so young.
conversation. I know, but have that conversation that comes up naturally, like when you see all the cute bunnies, or you see a kitten or a puppy, and you talk about mom and dad, and you talk about that God has mommy and daddies come together to make babies or puppies or whatever,
Or
and
babies,
start
little
it there, and even use the word sex. And just in that age group, what you're trying to say is God's created this and it's a really good thing. And if you can get that planted in their minds at 4, 5, and 6, you're in a good place.
Yeah, I think for me, that's even, unfortunately for me, like I have not had those conversations. Like, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve. Maybe not. I don't know.
Not for Joa, maybe a little bit,
Yeah,
right? For your
but
older
I
one.
think there is this stigma around the word sex where it's
Agreed.
like, I don't want to say that.
Should I say it? If I say it, is my kid going to go say it to somebody
It's like
else?
making it real. It's like making the thing real or something.
I will say I had that kind of conversation with both of my kids, like around the 5-year-old age, and one of them, I think it was Allison, started telling somebody else about it. Somebody else's kid at preschool. So I get it that it's a little bit risque, but at the same token, I want them to have that. This is a good thing that God has made.
I'm pretty sure I learned everything I know about sex from the bus.
Yeah, school bus.
Or my friends on
Or
the bus.
locker room.
Who were telling me things like, you got to go do that girl or whatever.
I
And
know,
I'm
and
just
you're like,
like,
what?
I don't even know what that means.
Hey, my
but
son
sure.
is 6th grade. He came home and he's pretty open, talked about some stuff. I'm like, you know what that is? Not really. We just say it and we all laugh at it.
Yeah.
So just recently, as a 12-year-old moving forward, I explained a couple things to him, but he was ready for that. Like, because I started young, and I know some people might disagree with this, you share what's appropriate, not too much, and your kids see you as the people with the answer. Instead of the opposite of like, my parents don't know anything, they're ashamed of it and embarrassed about this conversation. Own it, right?
If I can equate it to like football or whatever,
Okay.
for me, I think when I think about this conversation that I get nervous because I feel like I have to throw like the 60-yard game-winning pass, and it's got to be the one-shot wonder.
Right.
And I guess what I'm
Yes.
hearing from you is more.
Yes.
It's like Woody Hayes would say. It's 1 in 3 yards and dust behind it. How are the phrases? I'm
Lots of-
butchering that so
but
bad.
lots of
like,
small plays
yeah,
to get
lots
to
of
the
small
goal.
plays to get to the goal.
Absolutely. Open up the conversation. we don't necessarily talk about sex together as a couple,
Yeah.
as husband and wife, but it's obvious that there's affection for one another and something's going on between mom and dad.
Yeah.
Right, which creates another normal kind of idea. And
Well-
if I could just back up for a second, biblical times talking about sex. You know
Yeah.
how kids learned about sex? They all slept in one big bed together. I know that sounds completely like we don't want anything to do. Mark, why'd you even bring that up? Just the way that we live our lives has changed so much. Our job as parents is to expose our kids to sex in a healthy way.
I believe that sex is super powerful, and I believe that it's beautiful,
Right.
but it's kind of like fire.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's so scary about it
Sure.
is
Yes.
like, I think I've gone to the other side. I found the beautiful in it. You know, like I'm like, great, this is lovely, wonderful, get to do it, great. At the same time, sex can draw out hurts and pains and create rifts in relationships and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that's something that we don't necessarily talk about. So when it comes to biblical, scriptural principles, like help me and help our people that are watching, like tell me how do I start that conversation?
Sure.
Like what's something I would lead off with?
So let me run through. So if they're younger, 4, 5, or 6, you're talking about this new life, a puppy, whatever, where mommy and daddy puppy came together and they had babies. And you kind of leave it there. This is good. God created it. You know, so that's Genesis, the first couple chapters. God looked at man after he created him, and everything was good except one thing. Man was alone, and he said it's not good that man be alone. And so you're also introducing this idea of God's created us to be together, man and a wife, that someday that you'll have that. Now, that might be the 4, 5, and 6, the younger one. You kind of just stay at this is a good
Surface
thing that
level,
God's
got
created.
it, yeah.
So when you move to your older son, it's the idea of God's got somebody in mind for you. So you're introducing the idea of a relationship and some of the romantic good part of it, along with the idea of sex too. And by the way, in today's age, it's more important than ever to paint the picture of a healthy romantic relationship that leads to sex between a male and a female. It's really important to guide that process. Jesus in Mark chapter 10 then reflects back on all the creation principles that God made and talks about this being good and becoming one flesh. I think, Phil, when you're talking to a 9, 10, 11-year-old, when you start to talk sex, now you actually need to introduce sex and what it is physically at a very moderate level. As soon as physical anatomy comes into it, as parents, we start freaking out.
Yeah.
Can I say this? Am I going to say the word penis to my son?
Yeah.
Right? That's where we start freaking out.
Or the other way for your daughter.
That's
Like,
right.
how
We
do
don't
you
even want to
talk-
say
like,
that because
how do
we
you
don't know
talk
what
about
this
that? Like,
rating
that's
is
like-
for this podcast. But those are the kind of things where you say this is how this happens, but you keep it at a very minimal level. By the way, what you're teaching your kids too, while you're talking about sex, you're talking about healthy relationship between a man and woman. You're talking about healthy relationship, one partner for your life. Grady and I have now talked about the hurt that comes when there's multiple people that you would choose to have sex with. So you start introducing that.
When you even just talking about that just like is almost an overwhelming like wave after wave after wave. And so to me, it definitely has to be done in period over time and conversation because there's no way I can sit down with my son and expect him to retain everything that we just said right there.
Right. And so I think part of it is you need to be intentional about, okay, I need to have this conversation, but look for open doors. So when Grady asks questions, he opens up the door, I have more of the conversation. Instead of like, hey, we're throwing the baseball and all of a sudden I just throw something from left field at him.
It's funny to me because like I try to avoid these things in my head. Both of my kids love the song Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
And it's a fun song,
Right.
whatever.
Whoopin'.
Open Gangnam Style.
That's
Yeah, that
exactly
one.
right,
So
yeah.
it's great, but there is it says, hey, sexy lady.
Right.
And they're singing about it.
Right.
They may or may not have a
Right.
concept of what that
Correct.
means, but
And that's a
when you
great
talk
way.
about the language already being induced or introduced to them,
Right.
it's there.
Yeah, and if that's happening, you can even ask, hey, you know what that is? No. And just so it's kind of, there's a reason to talk about it. And then as a parent, we've got to become very skilled at knowing how far to take a conversation and when to let it drop and then when to reintroduce it.
It's something that you're doing over time.
Yep.
It's not a Hail Mary
No,
one
don't try to
conversation.
pack it all
It's
in.
not the dreaded sex talk.
That's
It's the sex talks.
It's many natural sex talks, and the thing that the killer is people wait too long to start the conversation. Your kids need to know that you're an expert in it and that you have the answers, not the school bus. I can't say that enough.
Okay.
My mom and dad know about this stuff. My dad knows about this stuff. The kids on the bus don't know what they're talking about. Grady knows that for me, and that's what I want. A couple other things, just biblical passages.
Yeah,
As we're talking
please.
about stuff, this is
Lay
progressing
'em out
on
there.
down. This is teenage years,
Teenage
late
years.
teenagers. This is actually good for premarital counseling. Song of Solomon. If you haven't read that, that is very sensual.
Some very
It's
erotic
very
poetry
good.
right there.
Proverbs chapter 5 really talks about some sexuality issues that are really good.
If you don't think sex is in the Bible, it is very much in the Bible.
Those chapters are very strong. Go into Ephesians 5 where it talks about husbands, love your wives, wives respect your husbands. That's into marriage.
That's awesome.
So when are you going to have the talk?
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know.
I think the best answer would be, I'm looking for that next
I am
first
looking
opportunity.
for that opportunity.
Yeah.
I have been, actually. I've been waiting to see if there's something that comes up in a show that we're watching or something that I can
come back around,
kind of
circle back around,
squeak into the conversation.
right.
Prior to our conversation, I've been very much dreading because I don't want to have it, and I'm like most people, can't they just? Isn't it just something they're just going to naturally just figure out as life goes on? And which is true, they will naturally figure it out.
And
I
then
mean, I
that's where
naturally figured it out.
Well,
so.
you did, but also some hurts come along with
Yeah.
that. I've got scars and hurts in my life because of that as well. I think could have been different.
Yeah. So that's what we got for you today. This has been a little bit more of an intense conversation.
It has. Let's raise up kids that are healthy in every way, and sex is part of that.
So, hey, we'll see you next time, and have a good week.
All right.